Okay, Carmela, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, and so my name is Carmela Lujan. I am originally from Colorado, and for the past 7 years, I have lived in Kyiv, Ukraine, where I work as an ESL teacher, and I also do some missionary work there.
So, how did you get into this?
So originally in 2012, I went on a short-term mission project to Ukraine. It was just a week long, and I loved the people, I loved the culture, and I was invited back a second summer to work with a church that was doing ESL classes and just like Bible camps for kids. And then that was really where I fell in love with Ukraine and I fell in love with the people and teaching English as a second language. And that's when I said, this is what I want to do. And so then I had the opportunity in 2017 to find a job there where there was a Ukrainian family that was looking to hire a homeschool teacher for their daughter. And so I moved there.
So, how often do you travel back and forth from the US to Ukraine?
I usually try to come back once a year, because it's such a far trip. And so actually too, because the airspace in Ukraine is closed, and so it's difficult to get in and out of the country. You can only travel by ground transportation, by bus or trains. And even now, we were talking to a friend earlier this morning, and he was saying that it's quite dangerous to travel by trains now because trains are now the main target. And so, I and because it's so far, once a year is usually when I come home.
So, is there anything that you want people to know more about Ukraine? Something that you wish they would understand more?
Something that I would touch on really, it's war is such a raw thing on so many regards. And really, there's almost two worlds. This morning I learned from Glenda's friend of all the projects that he does near the front lines. I live 4 hours north of the front lines, and so we don't constantly hear explosions like they do. Those kids are underground a lot. Those kids do not go outside. Buses are always targeted. There are people in occupied territories that are basically captive where they live now. They cannot go to the grocery stores if they do not have Russian passports. It's another world. It's two different worlds. In fact, I'll give you an example. I was invited by a friend to teach a women's Bible class one Sunday morning in a city, Kramatorsk, which is about 10 kilometers from the front lines. And it was day and night, even traveling there, because Kramatorsk is so close to the front lines. And so there were not a lot of passengers on that train going, mostly soldiers. And the further east you go, the less civilians are getting on. And I noticed, on the platforms, mostly soldiers. There are very few or no families left. Things are boarded up. Just the population is mainly soldiers. And so when I got back to Kiev, the vibrancy, the nightlife activity, and so even so within that, all of the attacks that Kiev sees, sometimes in the middle of the night there might be an air alert. And so when that's going off, you have to gauge, what it could be. It could be the Iranian drones, or it could be a ballistic missile attack, or, it could just be this psychological warfare game that they're playing. And so people are, thinking, do I have to get up? Do I have to take my children to the corridor? Do we have to go to the bathroom? Do we have to go to the metro station? Things like that. And so war is everywhere among Ukraine, but it's different levels of it. So in 2015, I was at a team training event for teams that were going into Ukraine to participate in the summer camps. And Glenda's team was there. And that previous summer, her team was the only team that had gone into Ukraine because Russia annexed a portion of Ukraine in 2014 and then further went in and started taking those eastern territories. And so she gave a presentation, and she also gave cupcakes to everybody and was talking about what she was, embarking on, what she was taking part in. And so then I had an interest, and I followed her over the years on Facebook. And then in 2022, right up, until the invasion, she kept up with me and was asking, what things were like there. And we stayed connected. And then I had an invitation to, come and volunteer and take part. And I had also asked her to join me when she visited Ukraine in just observing, what I get to do there and introduce her into my life. And she just became a special friend.
Is there anything that you would like for people to know about K-Hub?
The tremendous work that they're doing in Ukraine and the difference that K-Hub has made for so many years. When you walk in, you see all of these pictures of all of these people. And Glenda knew these people. She knows them on a deep personal level because that's when the war was first introduced. And these are the most vulnerable people that you'll meet. And the things that K-Hub did, they warmed their homes, they had coal, they had, I believe, community like wood splitters and wood and medicines and so many things. And then it evolved into orphanages and school supplies in tremendous ways. So everything that they do, everything counts for something. Yeah, so when I had an opportunity to go to that city in the east, Kramatorsk, so the church windows were boarded up, because of attacks, but also so they could not be recognized. So that's something that's also a danger that Ukrainians face, the opposition, from Russian soldiers, and so they cannot be identified or marked as Christians. And so, again, when you walk into these places, it's day and night. It almost looks uninhabited, but there are people there, and it's mainly, the vulnerable elderly population. It's a very eerie, sinking feeling. And so, it almost feels hopeless, but something that I really would want people to know too is the strength and dedication that Ukrainians have to just pull through and the tenacity that they have. And I've heard from several people too, when you go to Kyiv, restaurants are open and, it's thriving. And at the same time, people want to hang on to that hope that, they'll have a better day coming and that those men on the front lines are fighting for their freedom. The kids in schools, they're writing letters to soldiers, their fathers are soldiers. And so there's just a lot, that Ukraine is going through, but they're pulling through. So in the East, they have something what's called the shadow regime. And so at night, probably about maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. In the summer, it's not that dark, but 9 o'clock when the sun goes down, you're not allowed to have your lights seen because your home could easily be a target. And so I was staying at my friend's apartment, and I had noticed the apartment complex across from me was pitch black. And I was thinking, well, maybe those apartments are empty. And then I had a light on in his living room, and so I turned it off, just kind of had this feeling like something's not right. And I messaged him, and he said, no, you have to keep the lights off at night. Street lights, pitch black. In fact, I was with my friend's mother in city center, and we were walking, and the air alert goes off incessantly. And so in these places, you don't know, because it's almost like throwing a rock, across the fence with these missiles and such. And so, she said, we probably should go home. And so we did. And then, that's when I found out, oh, they don't have, lights at this time after hours. Nobody goes out after dark. It's just dead. Drone detectors. So Glenda's friend Jens, he's sending, these kids off to camp. And so they have these monitors, that let them know if there's, they're called FPV drones. I forget what the acronym stands for, but basically they're like these, little things that fly around, but they're explosives on them, and they're hunting people. And that's another thing in the East. That's another layer to this. So the Russians have what they call human safari, And so these people are walking to the grocery store or they're going outside their door, and these drones are attacking them. Or, their cars are being blown up or their buses are being blown up. And these are people who are just trying to live daily life.
And as compared to Kyiv, where you have more different kinds of missiles that are coming in.
Ballistic missiles or the Iranian Shahed drones. And those are equally as dangerous. But you can go outside your door in Kyiv, during the day, given the circumstance. But it's two different worlds. But there's a layer of war everywhere you go. Now it's summer. And so, your windows are open, and then you hear that buzzing noise, and it's so ominous and grotesque because you know why it's there and what it's being used for. And so it's a really sinking feeling whenever those attacks are happening, and you're reading about it and thinking, okay, when is it going to end? In the sense of like hoping and praying that there are no casualties, or thinking, even this might sound strange too, but whenever that explosion happens, when they're being intercepted, it's this feeling of, of safety, of knowing that it's not going to land into a building or a home.
Carmela lives on the second floor of her house.
I do.
And she has a little
skylight, a skylight above my bed, yeah. And I've sent several videos, to Glenda, because I can just stand up on my bed, open. And I do that sometimes too, just to know if I actually do hear something, just to ensure that's what it is. And so I'll stand up on my bed, open the window, and just, stick my head out and look out. And sometimes I can see them or I can hear them, or I'll watch air defense. So where we live, there's an air defense base probably like maybe 3 minutes from us. And so, sometimes I can see air defense like shooting them down, or they have spotlights. And so the soldiers, will cast the spotlight on them, and then, they'll shoot them down. And so I can see them. And that's usually, when I message you and let you know that, there's something going on. Or sometimes, we have friends in various cities, and some of those cities are, another level of dangerous. And so they'll be saying, I hear explosions, please pray for us. Or during the school day, Carmela, we're in the shelter, there were explosions, please pray for us. Ukraine has been such an integral part of my life for so long. I can't imagine or envision not being there, and perhaps that sounds selfish, but everything that I want to do, I get to do there, and I just have so much hope for Ukraine.
And it's people like you and Glenda that bring hope, to everybody that you touch and talk to.
And that's really only what I would hope to do, is to, speak life into them and to show them that hope, or to come alongside them. And it's a privilege to, Saturday morning to go with my friends after a long night of explosions, or a simple morning of spending time with them. Like my friend Sergey, he's our youth pastor, and I've known him and his family for a long time. And his wife and his son are in Poland, so he doesn't see them very often, but once a year. And so it's a privilege to laugh with them. And it's a rare thing, and it's just a special set apart time to do these things. And so really I just can't stress the fact that Ukraine was a privilege, and it continues to be.
I think it's important to note that Americans are not coming in to rescue Ukrainians, that Kind House is not like the hero, that we are, exactly like Carmela said, we're coming alongside people and doing what we can. Ukrainians desperately want to take care of themselves. They don't want to be rescued. They want to be independent and free. They want things that are sustainable, that they can take care of. A woman came last year to see me. Her name's Alina Wright, and she runs a humanitarian aid organization. And she said, Ukrainians are the ones that need to be stepping up to help Ukrainians. You know, we're really grateful for the help, but we want to be doing something that can help ourselves. So they're very proud of what they're doing. They want so much to take care of their world, and they don't want people to see them as weak, or that, you know, that we pity them in any way. They want to be brave and strong. They do have resilience. That doesn't mean that they're not tired. It doesn't mean that they're not sick of this war. It just means that they want to win, and they want their children and generations of children to be able to have a free place to live and to breathe free air. I mean, I love every single person who comes into the bakery, and they want so much to help, and that's beautiful, and we're still so grateful for that. So we're not going to stop helping. We're going to do everything we can to help them to succeed. And someday we're not going to have a bakery that is working for helping people survive from war. We're going to build playgrounds and happy things. We're going to help educational centers. We're going to fight the PTSD that they've had to experience, and we're going to have hope. So, I mean, we're just going to keep building up that hope and keep drawing people in. I think as Americans, when we see what's happening in Ukraine, we also desperately want to do something about it. We want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. We want to help people to succeed in life and not to have the things that are happening in this world right now. We want a better world. And so this is just a way for us to like climb aboard and, you know, put our feet on the floor every morning and say, what are we going to do to create hope in this world? Because we have to. This is the choice that we have. So I started going to Ukraine in 2013. My daughter had been in 2012, and she was 16 at the time, and she was like, Mom, you need to come to Ukraine. You need to meet these people. They're just amazing. I mean, there wasn't really anything bad going on. She just was like, this is your world. You would love them. I was in education at the time, and so she was working at an orphan camp. And so I came and I fell in love with them, and I came home to my mom and I was like, I want to help them. And she said, then you're going to stop being stubborn and you're going to learn how to bake. And so my mom and I started making cinnamon rolls and bringing them into schools and helping people just want to be a part of the solution for young people in Ukraine as they were aging out of the orphan system, you know, what we could do to help them build up their society. And then in the end of 13, into 14 was when Crimea was annexed. And so we started helping people in the Donbass area with coal and medicine and the things that would help them survive through the years. And I mean, these are just like little villages that there might be 800 people. And then the war started and there would be like 30 people left. So these are really the desperate among the most desperate people who did not have any place to go or the means to leave. And so they just needed a little bit of hope, a little bit of help to make them live through the winter. You know, you can see pictures of Ukrainians standing next to the coal, and they're dressed in their Sunday best because they're so proud that someone would care enough about them to just provide them with a truck full of coal so that they could put it in their little bitty stove and heat themselves for the winter. I mean, just a small gesture, and they were astounded that somebody would care about them to do that. So it just started from a small little porch in a little crazy town called Amarillo, and people all over Amarillo and the US wanted to contribute to that. We would receive packages from Amazon, and our porch filled up with eggs and sugar and flour and butter and all the things to make it happen. So for 9 years, I baked out of my house, and in 22, we opened up the storefront, and we've been functioning by all volunteers ever since we started. And it's just been an amazing adventure. We have people from all walks of life who come through the doors, all different beliefs and thoughts. But when we enter those doors, we're doing it to help Ukraine. We're not doing it for ourselves. And it is a place of joy. I mean, we do come together and we do have a really great time, but we also, at the same time, are hearing the stories from what's happening in Ukraine, hour by hour. And so everyone's very cognizant of the fact that everything we're doing is helping people directly in Ukraine. We make between 60 and 80 loaves of bread every week, most of which is sourdough. We have a retired chemical engineer and a retired pharmacist that really started our bread baking area here at the bakery. Before the bread baking area here at the bakery, though, our friend Donna Barton actually made bread with her daughter Shona, and they would come bring hot, fresh bread to the porch, and people knew when the bread was coming, so you could see cars kind of like, coming around the corner, and so they would get the bread off the porch as quickly as possible. And so bread is kind of a staple thing that we do here. My grandmother's cinnamon rolls are known pretty well in Amarillo, and so all the teachers know to come get a pan of cinnamon rolls. I think they're the best cinnamon rolls in Amarillo. But let's see, we bake like 50 different kinds of pastries, all different kinds of brownies, muffins, carrot cakes are really good, croissants, all different kinds of croissants. We do have like lunch that we serve every day. And so we have like 5 different sandwiches. On Wednesdays, we serve Detroit pizza. And on Thursdays, we serve bierox. We just have like a variety of things. Every volunteer that walks through the door comes with a recipe. They don't know it, but they come with a recipe. There's something that their meemaw made, or something there's some recipe that they're thinking, I think I'd like to share that with the bakery, and we could create funds for Ukraine with this recipe that came from my family. So, I mean, we're all part of the human race, and so we need to be together on helping humanity and helping us be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
I just have so much hope for Ukraine.